thank you so much for coming. I know this is like a busy time and it's hard. There's so many events and things going on, and it is very special when someone takes time to be there for art. So we really want to thank you, and I encourage you to please come as close as you can and fill in the seats, and we can create a good atmosphere together. Or if you want, you're welcome to sit on the floor, which is the traditional way, as is demonstrated right here, and you can see the instruments. So, yeah, the word in Urdu that they use is mahol. So you want to create like a certain ambiance and a feeling and an intimacy which the music deserves and calls for. So, please, thank you.
So if anybody would like to come forward and sit on the floor, that's fine. So I'd like to welcome you this evening to our concert. My name is Hal Roth, and I direct the Contemplative Studies program here at Brown. For how many of you is this your first Contemplative Studies event? So we're Brown's newest undergraduate major, concentration. We study this particularly important range of experiences of focused attention and concentration, tranquility, sometimes leading to increased self-awareness and self-knowledge that we call contemplative. And they occur on a continuum from the kind of spontaneous experiences of being absorbed in an activity, such as, for example, listening to an incredible concert, which we are all about to do, that we all fall into and out of from time to time, to the most transformative, deliberately cultivated experiences that we find in different religious and spiritual traditions. They're not different in kind, they're all on a continuum. We feel they're so important, and they have been so important in the history of human experience, leading people to gain deeper insights into human nature, into the ways in which we interact with one another, and to see ourselves in greater contexts than we normally see ourselves. Context of not only family and society, but environment as well. So we study these from scientific and humanistic and artistic perspectives. We've developed a series of courses, a few of which Professor Reddy teaches. And from time to time, he and Ajit, Acharya, accompany his accompanist on the Tabla, or maybe Srinivas.
Yeah, I'm accompanist
for grace us with performances. So if you'd like to learn more about what we do in Contemplative Studies, you can find us on the Brown webpage on the A to Z. Just look up Contemplative Studies. There you'll find details of the way in which we've constructed our particular concentration, the required courses, the important fields of knowledge. And the other thing that we really emphasize and that we've developed here is not only do we study contemplative experiences from the kind of distanced viewpoint that we find throughout the academy, particularly in the sciences and in many of the humanities, but we also teach students contemplative practices in a classroom setting. So we've worked at critical first-person methods to be able to do that in a classroom setting. So there's lots of information about us on our website, and if you go there, you'll see that there's a little button where you can sign up for the listserv. Next semester, we've got an incredible lineup of events that includes visits by neuroscientist Gael de Boord, 2 different Zen abbots, one in February, one in April, for all-day workshops, which we often do. We also have the famous travel writer Pico Iyer, who's coming at the beginning of April. John Kabat-Zinn will make an appearance, exactly in what form we don't know, but he will be here also around the same time. And also we're going to have a really special opportunity in March. We have 2 of the world's leading scholars and practitioners of yoga, of Hatha yoga, from the School of Oriental and African Studies at London University, James Mallinson and Mark Singleton, who've written extensively and translated extensively. They'll be coming to Brown for 5 days. They'll each give a lecture, they'll lead a yoga workshop, and they'll be involved in various classes. So that's, maybe we'll call it Yoga Week. Thank you all for coming. Please go to the website for further information. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce my dear friend,
your dear student
and colleague, Srinivas Reddy. We go back many years together. Just wonderful to opportunity, and I thank you, Ajit, Acharya, so much for the performances.
Thank you.
So, please.
Thank you, Professor Roth. Yeah, we do go back and very, close to the Roth family, and yeah, it's been wonderful, and I want to thank Professor Roth and also for really developing this amazing program that's doing so many things. I mean, you've heard the kind of programming that's planned for next semester. It's remarkable. So thanks to both of you for your hard work. And also for just being wonderful people who support the idea that, these contemplative states of mind that we were kind of discussing also include great artistic and performative traditions, particularly, of course, in this case, Indian classical music, just very simply was always in its original form conceived of as a spiritual practice. So when we do practice, we call it sadhana, so it's a form of yoga in and of itself. We are just trying. We learned these traditions and ideas from teachers in the traditional way of being an apprentice, and we, just trying to do our best to represent the wealth and beauty of that tradition. So we really thank everyone for coming and making time. We're trying to play 2 pieces, so we'll try to keep them pretty short, and I know we want to be done with time and hopefully have some time for questions at the end. It's been great being back at Brown. I went here as an undergrad, and to teach here has been wonderful. And I also teach in the music program, raga music to musicians who play different instruments like Devin and Sumu, who are here. And in fact, the 2 rags that we're going to play tonight are the 2 rags we've been working on in class. So thanks for practicing, guys, and hope you like it. The first one is called Rag Bhim Palasi. So we'll play a short alap, the presentation of the rag on sitar, and then a slow composition in Teen Tala, 16 beats, followed by Drut, fast tempo, also in Teen Tala. So thank you very much. Sit back, relax. Unfortunately, our Tanpura player is in Portugal, so we're going to have to revert back to the... isn't that funny? I'm saying revert back. It's really funny how tradition works. Like in the old days, of course, everyone had a Tanpura player. And then, for the last 20 years, or, at least 10 years, people have been using the boxes or these apps and all this stuff. And so to actually have a Tanpura player is kind of like this new thing. And so when we've been doing that, and now I don't have, I think I'm going back to the old school app. So here's the old school app. And what the app does is it's truly the manifestation of the philosophy behind the music. The app creates, or what the Tanpura does, is create this bass sound. That is the sa, the bass frequency on which all of this music is based. And really it's the representation of what in the Indian tradition is Brahman, the universal consciousness from which all things kind of emerge and all things flow back into. And in that same way, out of this one sa, out of this one frequency, all these different notes and permutations and combinations arise, and yet at the end of the day, that's the sa is really the only thing that remains. So here's the electronic version. We'll tune and then start. we'll save usually the third kind of movement we'll save for the next one. Huh? Jala, yeah. Good. Good. Very knowledgeable. Very good. Excellent. So we'll play an evening rag now called Yaman Kalyan, kind of the king of rags. Often the first rag that people learn, and we'll play in Rupak Tal, that's 7-beat cycle, and then Teen Tal with some Jala. One other thing I'd like to just say thank you to is Hillel, who has really been so supportive of so many things that Contemplative Studies has done, and it's just a very good place to be with very good energy. This rag, Yaman, they often say should be played at the time, it's a little late now by our standard, but when the day is becoming night and it's the time for the candles to be lit. So hopefully you've lit your candle for the day. So Rag Yaman in Rupak, and then Drut Teen Tal. And then we'll try to finish for some questions, some answers, maybe some answers, definitely some questions. Thank you so much. Thank you really for making time and being a wonderful audience. It's a pleasure to play with you, and we're happy to answer any questions about the music, the instruments, how we learned, anything.
Excuse me, on the sitar, right?
Yeah.
How does the tuning, as far as, how does it compare to a 12-tone scale? Or
Very good
six
question.
scale?
So, you know, I mean, this is one of the kind of, I would say, myths, in a certain sense,
The
of like,
microphone.
yeah. I mean, we have microtones, yes,
Right.
but the fundamental scale is a 12-tone diatonic scale, just like the Western scale, at a fundamental level, I'm saying. So
Yeah,
we break up the notes, and you can hear this.
Yes.
Yeah. So you know, the first rag was in a a Dorian scale. This one is in what we call Lydian scale with the sharp 4. But so at one level, the diatonic scale is the same actually for Indian music. And you know, like we have sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa, the 7 notes, just like do re mi fa sol la ti do.
Yes.
The microtonal part comes in when the
Depends.
space between those notes and how we use those, exploit those, and play with those. That is a unique part, and that's where the microtones come into play.
Yeah.
You know, which notes, like for example, in that first rock, you'll notice that I was doing this thing often. So that's very standard. You know, it's an easy interval. Same thing with Western music, but that's how the Indian musician will play it. So those in between notes and those that. You know, which note you do that on, how much time you spend, is it that way, is it fast?
Yeah.
All of that stuff is rag specific, and so microtones are used consciously, but they're rag specific, and fundamentally the scale is the same, I would say, at a base level.
I'm trying to put it together in my head because I'm looking at your frets, and,
Yeah.
and compared to a guitar, it's not the same.
Well,
You
yeah.
have the gaps, you know.
So that's an interesting thing. The gaps, there should technically, even on a, you know, like for example, a Vina, the kind of prototype, does not have this gap business. They'll actually have another fret there, and they'll have another fret here.
Okay.
This is one particular innovation of the sitar. In the sense, sorry to get a little musical on you, but
No,
you know,
no,
like, for example, there's only one position that you put the second note in. That is like do re.
Yeah.
Re. Actually, it's re in Indian music too.
Oh.
Re is the second note in Indian music too. So re, in this case, you can only pick a flat 2 or a natural 2,
Right.
because most rags only are going to use one of those or not. So this, you know, gives us a little bit more ease in playing. We can skip notes a lot easier if there's not that extra fret. So this is one particular innovation of the sitar, is like removing some of the frets. Also, because we don't fret everything that we're playing. I mean, you saw like I was bending the strings a lot, so we reach 2 certain notes, but not on the fret, by pulling rather than
Right.
fret.
On guitar, the same.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Exactly. Yep. Thank you. Yes.
How much is traditional and set, and how much is improvised and between the two of you? And
Yeah. Very good question. So the tradition is a tradition of improvisation. So there are fixed things. You know, there was some compositional stuff, but for the most part, the rest of it is improvised. Want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, when I try to listen to him, I'm in an accompaniment role. So when we first start playing together, it's almost like a dialogue. So when he poses a question, I try to answer it in a similar way. So if he poses an idea in 6s, for instance, I'll try to play something in 6s.
Yeah.
And the challenge is not to interrupt each other, but try to kind of harmonize as much as we can. It's very sympathetic. So
Yeah.
that's the best I can describe it. And you know, if he plays something that kind of inspires me, then I'll try to improvise something that matches.
So just to repeat, you know, the way we learn and the way the music functions is improvisational by nature. But what we played was completely traditional, like nothing, no fusion here. No, I mean I like certain fusion, but like I also really like when I play classical. I really like to be pure as possible.
And classical holds improvisation.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The whole classical form is based on improvisation.
Yeah, I guess you could get into a discussion about what makes it classical per se, because there is improvisation. There's probably more akin with jazz in that sense. But what makes it classical is the fact that it's older, the tradition is older.
Yeah, and even the label classical, of course, this is a Western label of what. But with no, I mean in the sense that Western audiences found that this was kind of elite music, it was court music. It had a long tradition, et cetera, et cetera. The rigor involved, all of that had a classical aspect. The other big part was, as they call in India, it's Shastriya Sangeet. So this is Sangeet, that is music, that is Shastra based on texts, based on like a tradition, and a formalized tradition. So there's all of that background behind the music. Yes.
More of a comment. I just want to thank you both. I feel like you've taken us all on a spiritual journey tonight.
Thank you.
And so, a question as well. So I was feeling resonation with the different instruments and different parts of my body, and I'm wondering if that's the sitar is attuned to one specific, or is it just what was working out of me tonight?
Yeah. Good question. So within the tradition, not particularly like the sitar tradition, but like the music tradition, particularly this classical kind of theorized and very spiritually oriented system. The old Veena, for example, was designed with 24 frets to mimic like the vertebrae, and there was a kind of a homology between man or human person, a being, and this instrument. And what ends up happening is that spinal cord channel, like this bass, that also maps onto the chakras, and the chakras themselves also have certain syllables attached to them. So vibration, the body, alignment, all of these things are totally connected. In terms of the rags, so the rags have very specific, what we call ras, attached to them, different flavors and moods. And so depending on the rag or depending on your own mood, the time of day, all of these things, you'll have some kind of response. It may be different different times, but I'm glad that you did feel that way.
America runs on rocks.
Yes.
Just to follow up on that, do you know what the oldest text is where the chakra system and I guess it's Kundalini yoga, right? Like what you're saying is that the sounds are attuned to the Kundalini system, like the medical system. So is this found in medieval texts?
Good question. So I'm not an expert on this field, but we could do some research. From a basic level, though, I'll say even Kundalini is one subset of a larger chakra system. Chakra system, in a sense, was an idea of like a physiology almost. So you might have, I don't know the history, but you might even have recourse to some of this chakra stuff in some of the medical texts. But I would say the idea of like the spinal cord and channels of energy moving up, which
like the sounds.
Which they even talk about in terms of sound, is old, and it goes back, you could say, to the kind of, at least the roots of it, I would say, are in this like seminal text called the Natya Shastra, which is the great text on theater, including music, which music was a big part of the theater. So
that's pre-medieval?
Sorry?
That's a pre-medieval text?
Yeah. Oh yeah. The medieval period is very interesting. Now I can geek out for a while, but this is what happens when you have professors. The medieval period was this interesting period. I mean, there's a lot of history here too, because you see, like North Indian music. This is North Indian music. What we play, heavily Islamic influence. So that medieval, like you could say, early medieval period, Islamic influence coming in, melding into this older tradition. You have some new music happening, you have this Hindustani music, but you also have this like revival, a type of renaissance of going back to those old texts, revising things, looking at things in a new way, reintegrating some of these, chakra systems, yoga systems, whatever. All of that was getting a very nice, a renaissance in a way, like around 1500, something like that. So yeah, there's a lot going on here. So sorry if I talk too much. Hey.
I was curious.
Yeah.
Do you have a specific gharana?
Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. So
repeat the question?
she was asking, what is your gharana? So gharana comes from the word ghar, which means house, and the gharana system in our music is basically it's not just a style. It's not a style of music. It's a lineage. It's a family of music that's passed down through families or homes, the ghar. So it developed as a system of hereditary knowledge being passed down. So every musician gets initiated into their particular gharana by their teacher, who was trained in a particular school. So my teacher, Partha Chatterjee, was a student of Nikhil Banerjee's, who is, a great disciple of Alauddin Khan Sahib, probably one of the greatest maestros, who was Ravi Shankar's teacher. You might have heard Alek Khan's father. And he actually created a gharana just based on him, because he was so prolific and so amazing, and he had these amazing students that really spread Indian music to the world, like in the 50s and 60s. It was these people. So this was, and the gharanas are generally named after the place where the master lives. So Maiher is the name of the town where Alauddin Khan Sahib lived, and my gharana is called Maiher Gharana. And in addition to that, they also say that it's Senia Maiher, meaning that there's a direct blood lineage back to Tansen, who is the court musician in Akbar's court, who's kind of the godfather of Hindustani music. So it's Senia Maiher Gharana is my particular gharana. Gharanas also exist in the Tabla lineages, so Ajit,
Yeah, so my gharana is Banaras gharana. So yeah, the main tradition that I study in, and that's characterized. There are certain phraseologies specific to sitar. Same thing with tabla. We have it's actually a very Kathak-oriented tradition, and so we have a lot of fixed compositions that actually go with dance.
I don't mean to be very critical, but we've been talking about spirituality and lineages, so I'm wondering if it's important for musicians today, especially abroad, to have to link this with caste and see how classical music is a tradition. All I'm trying to say is our lineage is really all that important.
In this day and age, I don't think it is, because I think even my Guruji, he actually encourages us to look to other traditions and try to imbibe some of the best aspects of multiple traditions of playing and try to create your own style, really.
Yeah.
And I would probably, your Guruji,
oh yeah, definitely,
encourages
encourages all sorts of things. But again, I don't want to sound like a traditionalist, although I think I am. I do believe it's very important to learn one style properly first, to have a firm basis in one tradition. Then Guruji is like, yeah, do whatever you want. But you play this clear, fundamentals clear. So in that sense, I do believe what you're talking, maybe like social context, particularly Hindustani music, you have religious difference now. You have ustads, you have pandits, you have Hindus, Muslims, this going on. In South India, you have a lot more caste differential, heavily Brahmin dominated, world of music in Carnatic music. So social things, there's a lot of issues, and India is a very complex social place. So those things definitely need to be negotiated and dealt with.
But what I'm trying to say is I don't mean to bring in caste. I'm bringing it in because the idea of lineages is directly linked on the way our society has been organized. So I'm just wondering, because T.M. Krishna famously said that.
Yeah, that's his big campaign right now.
Yeah.
But again, that's South Indian, remember. So he's really critiquing the nature of South Indian Carnatic music in that case. North Indian has his other issues. I know what you're getting at. And I think a lot, like you were saying, like my teacher, Ajit's teacher, a lot of teachers, like how we teach, we're not particularly hardcore about that stuff. But we're hardcore about the material. That you have to know it for what it is. You have to play it, properly by this standard. And then, and this, we can end on this, built into the tradition is the sense of innovation. Every teacher, after you studied for your 12 years or whatever, goes and says, okay, I taught you, you play, fine, find your own voice, do something, contribute to this music, make your mark. That's always what we were taught, so at one level, you have to know your stuff. You have to practice the traditional stuff. You have to know all the composition. But at the other level, it's like, don't be boring and play that stuff exactly like I played it. You have to do your thing. So it has both of these things built into it. Yes, sir. Last question.
That was most beautiful.
Thank you.
And I have a personal question, if you will indulge me. What does it feel like to be in the center of so much vibrational healing energy?
That's a tough question.
Well, I'll tell you how I feel. Generally, especially concerts, because when we're at home and practicing, it's different. But at concerts, like, you can't stop. So for me, it's like once it starts, it's like this ride, and you're just on it, and you really kind of don't have a lot of control over it. I mean, you saw us smiling and interacting, but like for the most part, it's just like you're like at the eye of the storm. So you're just trying to you feel all this stuff going on, but you're kind of in this calm place and a little bit trying to keep it together, and not fall into that and get carried away. That's how I feel. I think
That's a great way of putting it.
That makes you guys the storm.
Yeah.
So thank you for that question. Thank you everyone again for coming. It's really a pleasure.